What's up guys, welcome back to another classic episode of Think Tank Thursday. Thanks for joining me again. This is the show where I delve into my 12 years of parkour knowledge and bring you every single pitfall, every single mindset shift, everything that's going to help you become a better athlete. And today we're talking about 3 ways to improve your parkour coaching. I've been a coach since I was 16, parkour coach since I was 18, so we're talking about 9 years of coaching experience now, consistent coaching experience in parkour. So I just wanted to bring forward some of the ideas that I've had as a coach and some of the problems I see with newer coaches and just coaching in general. So if hopefully this will help you, do stick around even if you're not a coach, because there'll be some ideas here that you need to know whether you're a coach or not. So I'll start with the thing that I'm most passionate about, and this is something that you probably haven't really thought about before, but it's super important to be aware of, and this is the biggest problem with parkour coaching. And more importantly, it's the biggest problem with people who are slightly older in the community and then trying to give younger people advice. Even if you're not a coach, you are still trying to pass that on. And that's cool. That's a really good attitude. We want to build a community. We want to have community. We want to have people help us as we get better. And you pass that down, you know, people help you and you pass that down, and that's just a lovely symbiosis. That's a community. That's an amazing way to live. But there's 2 major pitfalls here. One is goddamn know what you're talking about when you coach. And 2 is to coach it fully. Now, the reason I get so intense with this is because when I was younger, when I first started doing parkour, someone told me, I don't remember who it was, but someone told me, make sure you land on your toes or balls of your feet, because that's a good landing for parkour and that's what we have to do. Now, that's not wrong, but that's definitely not even close to the full picture when it comes to a proper landing technique. And what this meant was that I would run and jump, and I would land quite upright, super stiff, but as long as it was on the balls of my feet and I didn't move, I thought that was a good landing. But that has absolutely nothing to do with the biomechanics of how your squat works, how your legs should be taking impact, and how to properly use your body. What this ended up causing for me down the line was, as you know, if you follow these, 8 years worth of patella tendonitis. So you need to make sure that if you're giving someone advice when it comes to their body, that you know what you're bloody talking about. Because if you don't, and it's an impressionable kid who's gonna stick it to the letter like me, then you're gonna end up giving that kid the wrong idea that they're gonna take letter for letter, word for word, through their training career, try and stick to it, and then they're gonna end up with some serious injury and problem because you haven't considered the idea. You're just kind of giving forward information that maybe you don't really understand properly, or maybe you've only just come to learning, or maybe it's just what you've heard in the community, so you're passing that forward. Know what you're coaching, know what you're talking about, know why you're coaching it. Don't just have these ideas of parkour that have been passed down to you that all of a sudden you are giving forward to another person if you don't really understand what it is that is doing, why you do that, and what that helps the child with. Particularly if you don't know their body type, you don't know what's wrong with their body, you don't know their flexibility. You have to know the whole story. There's so much to it. There's not just like this one rule for everyone. There's so much to coaching. Now, don't let this put you off giving advice. Just understand what advice you're giving. And if you're giving half advice because it's what you've heard, at least make sure that you put a disclaimer on that for the kids so they don't just hear it and go, yeah, okay, that's what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. The second part of that one tip is to coach it fully. Don't be lazy with your coaching. I'm guilty of this in the past. I know that if I'm not, sometimes you're there and you've been coaching all day or something and you're not there for the kid. You're there because you're supposed to be there because it's your job. Do your absolute utmost to get out of that mentality and remember that you're changing someone's life with every single coaching tip that you give. So when you teach someone something, teach it them fully. Teach it them to your best ability and don't half-ass it, because you'll get the same results as the previous thing I was just talking about. You get an impressionable person trying to do something. You've given them little bits of advice, but you can't really be asked. And then all of a sudden they're in this place where they've got some of your advice and they're doing it half right and half wrong. And the bit that's half wrong is going to do them damage, and it's going to affect their entire training life, especially if they continue to do this. And some kids will, and you don't know which is which. So just make sure that you're coaching everything you coach 100% fully. Go to every depth that you can. Pull it out of yourself. Really bring 100%. And make sure that kid understands what you're saying, even if they don't want to hear it, if you know what you're talking about. Coach fully. Know what you're goddamn talking about. So important, so important. And if everyone can pass that forward, if everyone can take that attitude, man, we're gonna have some great athletes. But if you don't, we're gonna have some crippled people. So understand the depth of the position that you're in. Understand the severity of the authority that you bring when you tell a child what to do. Some children, some don't give a crap and won't listen to you anyway, but that doesn't matter. You should still be giving them the correct advice. By the way, guys, if you're new here, please do consider subscribing. We bring you these Think Tank Thursdays every single Thursday, and on Tuesdays you can come watch us put it all into practice as we take you through a vlog where we train from town to town, meeting new people, go into new places, and just bringing you along for the ride the whole time while we overcome our challenges and put all of this into practice. So please do consider subscribing, and don't forget to leave me a comment, because I love to hear from everybody in this community, everybody who watches these, any questions you have, anything that you want for me to cover in the next few weeks, let me know down below. So the next two tips are kind of two opposite ends of the spectrum. And the first one is to try not to coach too much on the level of the mind. Now, I've been over in a lot of these videos about the difference between kind of your thinking process and your ideas about parkour and the actuality of doing parkour. And you might be able to describe parkour to the nth degree. You might be able to describe every single little nook and cranny, but if you're there trying to give this person a billion tips, and you're just filling their head with concepts without them trying it out, without them trying each move individually, trying each different variable one after another. Once they've nailed one, you know, if you're just being Mr. Intelligent Coach and just trying to dump all your knowledge on this person, you're actually not helping them. You're just doing your own ego a service. You're just like, look at how much I know. It's not about that. You've got to allow the kid or the person, whoever it is, to take individual pieces of advice and implement them one after another, not give them all these ideas to confuse them and disorientate them. Now, it's also the case that you should watch out for learn to tell the difference between, is someone doing something wrong, or are they just having trouble going for it because their idea of it is different. Like, don't coach someone on a technique when it's their commitment that's the problem. Don't come over to them and say, try this, try that, when in actuality, all that the problem is that they don't understand it in their head. They don't understand, they're not ready to go for it. You know, just try and remove yourself from the coaching process and actually look at what the person needs. Do they just need you to let them know it's going to be okay? Do they just need you to spot them round a few times with no input? Try and notice the difference. Try and notice when you can tell them how to unhook their mind rather than try and give them different techniques to land the move better. This will help massively. This will really help you coach kids. A lot of it is about getting out of the way of the child and letting them do the move, not putting yourself in there and then when they land it, you take emotional credit for it. You know, it's about the kid. It's about the person, who's learning. I coach a lot of kids, but I do coach adults as well. And the final tip is to don't let your own limitations and your own ideas of what's possible limit the kid. Now, this is super important, super subtle, and a super difficult one to let go, because you're in control of a class and you don't want anyone to get hurt, and that's completely understandable. But what looks sketchy to you might not necessarily be sketchy to a kid, and you're going to limit their way of moving, their way of learning, if you come in with all your limitations and ideas of what's going to hurt them and what's not. That kid, if they're young, is going to be a lot closer to their body and knowing what it's able to do than you could ever really imagine as an adult, especially if you cast your mind back to what you were like as a kid and an adult would tell you what's dangerous and what isn't. Like, we think we know because we've done parkour, but really we still have that adult lens and that guardian lens of what is appropriate to do and what isn't. Now, I'm not saying just let kids be reckless, and we all know that there are different people who will be reckless, and you can maybe say to them, maybe you're being reckless, but do notice that if they are being reckless but like actually not hurting themselves at all ever, are they being reckless, or is it your idea of what recklessness looks like? Double check with yourself, and don't limit a person based on your own ideas of what's going to hurt them and what isn't. Don't limit them because you're uncomfortable with what they're doing. Teach technique. Go in and teach someone a technique to make what they're doing better, but don't take away their confidence in what they're doing because by telling them they're going to get hurt and by telling them that what they're doing is dangerous. Like, you're no better than your mum at that point. You know, you're no better than the person who limited you in that way when you were a kid. So just be aware of where your own ideas of what someone should be able to do on their first day is, how that's limiting a person, and don't try and box them in too early on. Let them be free, let them be creative. Don't let them be genuinely dangerous. If you can see someone very, very close to hurting themselves, put a mat in or something like that, but don't just take it away from them. Don't just destroy their confidence and their ideas of what's possible because your own ideas are limiting you. And it's really easy to fall in this trap, particularly because of two things. Parkour can look very dangerous, and if you're a coach, you've generally done parkour for a long time, you've had some bad experiences maybe. But you're still in that older head mind where you don't want them to get hurt, but how much of that is your own limitation? Really look into it. Pay really close attention to it. How much can kids really, really do? How much can that student really, really like do without the technique you think is proper? Usually a hell of a lot more than you think. So don't be Mr. Strict Coach and all my kids have to be perfect. Don't be Mr. Oh, I need to make sure that everyone's doing everything neatly in case someone comes in and sees a messy class, you know? It's not about that. Parkour is about true creativity and true freedom of movement and expression. So don't limit that based on your own ideals. So that's 3 ways that you can be a much better coach, and the 3 ways that, if implemented by a lot of coaches, we're going to have a hell of a parkour community. So I hope you got something from that. I hope even if you're not a coach, you enjoyed that episode. And leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you got from this. Let me know what you'd like to see in the future. I love bringing you these episodes. I love the community. Thank you so much for joining me as always. And if you do want to support us, we do have a Patreon. If you want to sponsor me for a coffee a month, if you're up for buying me a coffee a month, that would truly help the channel. Just sign up to the Patreon below and you get some perks as well. So big love, guys. I will see you next week. Take care.